Remember how I was talking about how the eviction crisis was coming? It was about like a month ago, I believe, at the beginning of August. It was the eviction crisis was going to start. The eviction moratorium passed on the original coronavirus bill, and people are in the economy is still very bad. There was recently in September, what was it? August. In August, there was still 1 million jobless claims, 1 million unemployment claims that were filed all across the country. The country is not back on track in any way, shape, or form. Things are still falling up. The pieces of the economy, the pieces of people's lives are still strewn across the floor, and they're still trying their best to pick it up. But what's kicking a lot of people down while they're down is the fact that landlords have started to file eviction notices, and people, while they're trying to get their lives back together, are being kicked out of their very homes. CNN put out a segment earlier today where they were talking about what's happening during this pandemic, and it is how this person puts it, honestly, very criminal. I will say that this is doomer fuel. This is not for the faint of heart. It did make me feel very bad. If you are not in the mood for this, I would suggest give us 4 minutes and you can pop back in. It is a little sad. It is pretty sad. So we're just gonna hop into it.
Constable, need to come to the door.
From one Houston home to the next.
Hello, Constable.
Deputy Benny Gant with the Harris County Constable's Office executes judge's orders to evict.
Hello, Constable.
We ain't got nowhere to go.
Israel Rodriguez is a tenant at this apartment, but he's not alone. 20-month-old Israel, his brother, 4-year-old Fabian, and their mother are some of the estimated 40 million Americans facing eviction in the downward spiral of the COVID economy.
They didn't rush us, but they were like, get everything you need.
Rodriguez admits he hasn't been paying rent, behind thousands of dollars.
It's my fault in the eviction. It was a lot going on during the corona. When it hit, I lost my job. So it took me like a month to get another job. This is my check, but I ain't making it with $300. It's literally $300.
Their stroller now carries their possessions.
It's mainly the kids' clothes because me and her just wear the same clothes almost every day. Make sure we got, toilet paper and a little bit of snacks for the kids.
What are you gonna do with all of your stuff?
That's trash. They can throw it in the trash because we don't have a car, we don't have help, we don't have nobody that can come, help us out right now. Nobody. We got ourselves, me and the kids and her. That's it.
How does you as law enforcement feel about seeing that family have to go?
Oh, it's a tough situation. I've got 6 kids, 6 children. And, when the kids see the mom and dad in desperate situations, it's tough. That's clear.
Deputy Gant, an officer for 35 years, is just starting his day. 8 evictions are on his list.
A co-defendant is here, 2 of them.
At each stop, people behind on rent are ordered to leave. Possessions pulled out.
Where are you guys gonna go now?
We gotta go to a hotel.
You can go to a hotel?
As Deputy Gant works through his list, we get word that 200 eviction orders have come through the Harris County courts for this week. That's double what they normally saw for an entire month before COVID.
200 on Monday. What does that...
Well, that's a lot, yeah.
What does that say to you?
Well, what that means is that they're ready to start having people removed from properties.
It is a backlog, but it's also just one precinct in one of America's hardest hit cities in evictions. The job takes its toll.
I don't really want to put her out here, but I
This one's one of the worst.
have to, under this judge's order.
This one's one of the worst. This is you'll see why, but for a lot of reasons, this is like it's pretty sad. Congress has dragged its feet. Trump has not been doing anything, and yeah, you're rattled. Don't worry. This is the last one, but it is one of the worst.
At this apartment, the tenant is an elderly woman who can no longer afford the rent. The landlord's mover, Francisco Munoz, works, though he doesn't want to.
I have a family, I have a sisters, I have my mom, and we never know. Maybe today is her, tomorrow's me.
Midway through the eviction, Deputy Gant decides it's too dangerous to evict her in the Houston summer heat
I'm not going to put her out here in this heat.
and will call social services instead.
You're going to stay today, but tomorrow you're leaving.
A one-day reprieve with an uncertain tomorrow.
You have a situation where people aren't working, they don't have the money, and they're desperate.
Whew. Yeah. That is definitely a face. 1 second. Let me move this back. Okay. So there it is, people. That is America. This is the America that lots of people are living in. It was something different. I'll tell you that much. It was something different when it was just numbers, Remember that chart that we showed where it showed up to 60% of renters in certain states? I think the lowest number was 35%, but up to 60% in places like Oklahoma and other like rural states where renters could be evicted from their homes when the eviction moratorium lifted, and it had, and you see, hey, welcome back, hey, perfect on time, and you see, lots of people were being kicked out, and a lot of it, which I think is super sad, is that a lot of it is like internalized. Remember the first guy who was like, hey, I think it's my fault. I lost my job when coronavirus hit. We didn't have any money, and it took me a month to find a new job. And I'm trying, and we're back thousands of dollars on the rent, and I can't pay it with $300. And so him and his family just had to, we're just kicked out on the street. And so these landlords, they're just coming. If you heard, he said he got the judges there got 200 eviction notices in a week, which is more than double than what they got in an entire month before. Just so many people just being left out to dry. The homelessness crisis is going to explode exponentially now. We have to deal with this, and then the deaths on top of that for people who don't have anywhere to go. I mean, think of that like lady, the older woman. What's she going to do? She has no money. She has nowhere to go. Now what? What, does she have no social security? Like, how are we going? How do we call a country? How do we call ourselves a country if we can't protect her? We know a country's morals by how it protects its most vulnerable. And I mean, I think America's mask has just thrown to the wind. It's not mask slipping. It's the mask has been thrown to the wind, and it's been ran over by a semi truck. It just no longer exists anymore. It is a facade. When people say America is like a third world country, this is honestly what they're talking about. This is one of the worst things that I've ever seen in my entire life. And you'll still have people out there like, just buy a home, my dude. Just don't be poor, my dude. Why'd you lose your job, my dude? And I was thinking, when you saw like a couple of people who were the ones like doing the lifting. We hear about like the police, right? We talked about that. He talked about that. The landlord's mover, the person who moves people in and moves people out, and the landlord's mover who was there crying as he was moving out that woman's stuff, and he was like, "Hey, I don't want to do this job," but he doesn't get paid. He doesn't get paid enough to be able to do anything about it. I mean, what's he gonna do? He has to move her stuff out, or else he'll get fired, and then he'll be her. He'll be like her, when he's like, I don't want to do this, but I don't have any choice. It's gonna be me or my sister. I mean, it could be me or my sister tomorrow, if I can't keep this job. And I feel like that's for a lot of people. I know it's really easy for us to talk about some people who are the ones who are doing the lifting here, the police specifically. But when I think about it, they're people too, aren't they? And I know a lot of people were like, hey, if I was that person, if I was the mover, if I was the cop there.
hog.
Thank you so much for that follow, Miles. I really appreciate that. Like if I was the mover, if I was the cop there, I do whatever I want. I do whatever I want. I wouldn't follow that judge's order. I wouldn't follow the police department's order. I wouldn't follow my boss's order. I wouldn't do anything. I wouldn't do that, you know? But scabs exist. Someone's going to step into that spot. And when someone does, they're going to be paid for the job that you weren't. And then you're going to end up just like them, you know, with no home, with no money, nowhere to go, and the landlord's mover coming to knock on your door and put you and your family on the street. I mean, you can't just say, go get a new job for a 3-head. You know, you can't just say that to people, especially right now with the way things are right now. You can't really, you just can't say that to people. Hey, I mean, finding a job didn't work out too well for the first guy who's getting kicked out of his home. Didn't work out too well for him. What makes you think it's going to work out well for you? So the whole system is ruined. You know, we like to, even the landlords, technically, I feel like a little bit more falls on the landlords. I feel like a lot of them have the money to keep those places running, at least somewhat, with some money that with some at least reduced amount of money that that tenants can give them. I highly doubt that they cannot run those places. But I mean, even them sometimes have to make money from the bank. The banks have are on lockdown on some lawyers. Are on lockdown on some landlords, and because of that, they have to pay things back. And you know, the banks are locked down by the FEC, and I can't speak, by the Fed, right? And so that's why when we're talking about why things need to shut down, it can't just be an eviction moratorium, because for one, it wasn't even like those payments were deferred. They're just piled on to the end once it ended, and then people couldn't pay $5,000 in rent, and then they just get kicked out. So this is why it has to stop, like, through the whole system. There's a whole payment system that has to stop there, and it just got thrown back into motion, and people are obviously going to fall out the back, and this is what's happening. Hundreds of thousands of people could be hitting the street right now. It's incredible how horrible it's been mismanaged by our elected officials. It's disgusting.